Than waking up to a plumbing problem, don't get caught in a flooded house. Call the guys at Hemp Hill Services. Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemp Hill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemp Hill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemp Hill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
Happy football season. At The Next Round, we strive to make our loyal listeners feel like they're a part of the action all season long. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and I do that by bringing you along for any given Saturday in Auburn or Tuscaloosa. From pregame warm-ups, touchdowns that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between, our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to fall Saturdays.
We talk about all the biggest games every Monday at 10:30 with Fox Sports analyst Joel Klatt. Presented by MyBookie.ag, promo code NEXTROUND. If it is meaningful at all in college football, we cover it Mondays with Joel Klatt, presented by MyBookie.ag on the Next Round.
Week 9 of the college football season in the books. And to talk about it, Fox's Brock Huard right here on Unlocked on Disrupt Media. I am Lance Taylor from the Next Round. He is Brock Huard, fresh off another jaunt to Los Angeles. I know I'm going to know the answer to this question before I ask you, but overall, are you a LA fan?
Am I an LA fan? Scale of 0 to 10. I'm a Luke Huard fan. My little brother, who's a USC coach, so I'm a Luke Huard fan. Every time I think, oh, I shouldn't say that. I was about to say I think it'd be harder to live in LA than Vegas, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you can get on the outskirts of both, and you can make it work. But man, every time I go, it is just mayhem in LA. Mayhem.
Yeah, disasterish. I lived out there for a short stint. Could not stand it. Visiting, different situation. I will tell you, man, that and you were on the call on Friday night, and I enjoyed it. That USC team, if you don't lose guys like Anthony Lucas and Eric Gentry, and you get a break here or there, I think they would be in the conversation of a team with maybe 2 losses that still could make a run, but unfortunately it's gotten away from Lincoln Riley. But I did think it was a nice bounce back on Friday night for the Trojans.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like a lot of these teams that I see, it'll be fun to see Kansas State this weekend. They're a little bit more mature. established. I was just looking at their line of scrimmage, Lance, and it's like fifth year, 6-year, 5th-year defense, same thing, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, 5th year, like, and they've all been in the program and they're all just kind of grown ups. BYU is going to be somewhat similar, right? You got some of these that are super established and mature, and then you've got a whole bunch of teams that don't have that have just kind of transfers galore, trying to figure themselves out a little bit. I would put maybe Lincoln Riley and SC in between. He was, excuse me, he was very clear, and he said it multiple times to us, that he really feels like as a team, as a collection, this is his best team in 3 years. Problem is, Caleb Williams erased a lot of the areas. Like if Caleb Williams had this group, this O-line and these receivers and this defense and this D coordinator, yeah, he didn't lose 5 games last year or whatever crazy number it was. So they are better, but just a little bit thin in some of the important spots.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to bore people with USC because they are gone and forgotten.
Yeah, people don't want to know that.
They don't.
People don't want to know that. Lance.
But I do want to know why number 1 is not more involved in the offense, Zachariah Branch. And, we saw him, the first sight we saw him in college was week 0 of last year, where he had the electrifying punt return. I think he had a kick return. And he looked like, hey, this is the next version, different position, but Reggie Bush.
Yes.
And he just doesn't get a lot of touches.
No. I think he had 5 touchdowns in his first 4 games last year. He didn't have a touchdown through 8 games this season. So he got the one call back early, which was unfortunate for him. I think as a player, you start to press a little bit. I think in the return game, he's not gotten quite as many opportunities. And when he has, I think just watching it, he's pressing, wanting so badly, kind of like Aaron Judge in this World Series, wanting so badly to do something. And then, offensively, teams try to make sure they account for him. So the ball's kind of sprayed everywhere and all over the field, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. So I would agree with you, though. These final 4 games, and the way college football works, you know how it works, Lance. Like it's a transactional deal. If I don't get mine, I don't get my touches. Every year, that receiver room at SC is turning over 2 or 3 guys. They're bringing in some of the best in the country from a recruiting standpoint. So, I think it'll be important on both sides to get some production here down the stretch.
Let's never forget, Brock, everything in this world is transactional. That's the way these things work. So contrary to some belief out there, I take a lot of pride in doing a lot of prep for our shows. But I don't necessarily plan a lot on what's going to happen. So organically, some things come up. And on the fly today, earlier on the next round, organically it came up on some scenarios when it comes to the college football playoff. And I want to get your thoughts on this because my guys, both Dunaway and Brown, scoffed at me basically when I said this. But if you look at a team like SMU that is 7-1 and their one loss, a home loss on a Friday night to an undefeated number 9th ranked BYU team, who you've seen BYU in person, it's a really good team. If SMU runs the table, they go 11-1. Clemson runs the table 11-1, Miami 12-0. I think the ACC goes by highest ranked teams, which there would be Miami and Clemson playing for the ACC championship. If one-loss Clemson beat undefeated Miami and you have a one-loss SMU team that is still hanging out there, who gets in the playoff? We know Clemson gets in because they get the automatic, but how do you punish an undefeated Miami team if they play in that game? And then how do you punish a one-loss SMU team that maybe the only one loss is to an undefeated BYU?
Yeah, I think you're going to probably, and your boys scoffed at you because they were like, are you serious, Lance? You don't think that committee room is going to put Miami in with all of the marquee games, marquee wins, and a Heisman Trophy, front runner with Genty and all you really think there's going to be any debate there? Now,
my point was, I thought they got in, Brock. They were like, ACC's not getting 2 teams in. And my point is, I think the ACC could get 2. I think they would have, it's going to be a really difficult time for the committee that snubbed the ACC last year, and understandably so with Jordan Travis. Under this scenario, there's nothing outstanding like that. This is just 3 teams with 1 loss that are all borderline top 10 teams. And how do you punish a team that didn't get to play in the game? And how do you punish a team that was undefeated that lost in that game?
Yeah. So in this scenario, both Clemson and Miami are 12-1, right?
Right.
They're both getting in at 12-1.
So what do you do with SMU when their 1 loss is to an undefeated BYU? Didn't get an opportunity to play in that game.
Yeah, you say God bless you. You had 11 wins, so you're 11-1. I'm sorry. God bless you. Go on your way. enjoy campus, a beautiful campus, a lot of money, a lot of resources down there. You'll be just fine. So I would think that the 12th, and that's what they would say, right? Well, they got the 12th win. Clemson got the 12th win, and obviously Miami ran the table 12-0, and unfortunately lost to a good Clemson team, and they're both 12-1. I would be hard pressed to believe that two 12-1 teams out of the ACC in that scenario would not make the playoff.
Okay, to the Big 12 quickly. BYU and Iowa State do not play each other. BYU's got quality wins. They beat SMU on the road. They destroyed Kansas State. BYU and Iowa State play. Iowa State wins the game. 13-0 Iowa State, 12-1 BYU to both get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in that scenario, both get in.
I thought so too. That's another thing I was scoffed at. I just think it's really fascinating that, going into the season, we all thought it's going to be at least 4 teams from both the Big Ten and the SEC, and it still might be. But I think there's some interesting scenarios throughout November that are going to open up in the ACC and the Big 12.
I would agree, and I don't know if any of these teams that we just talked about in all those scenarios are going to be able to play at that level for that long. Right, we run into this seemingly every year, and even when we had the 14 playoff, look at what could happen, look at the disaster the committee could be in, look how hard this could be, and then there's a loss, and these things just find a way seemingly to work themselves out. Be hard pressed to believe that you're going to have a 13-0 and 12-1 in the Big 12, as it's already cannibalized themselves in a bunch of different ways. But God bless them if they do. I mean, Brett Yormark would be doing backflips if that were indeed the case. And they found a way to get 2 teams in.
Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag. Make sure you put in that code. Next round, they're going to double your initial deposit. It is that simple. From sides to totals to player props, whether it's the World Series or the NBA, they've got it available right now at mybookie.ag. So I did this with your colleague, Joel Klatt, earlier, and I just want to hear your take on this. I'm going to go 1 through 14. You tell me, legitimately in both polls, 1 through 14, how many of these teams can win a national championship?
Okay.
Oregon.
Yes.
Georgia.
Yes.
Penn State.
No.
Ohio State.
Yes.
Miami.
No.
Texas.
Yes.
Tennessee.
No.
Notre Dame.
No.
BYU.
No.
A&M.
Maybe. Let me circle back to them.
Okay. Iowa State.
No.
Clemson.
No.
Indiana.
Must say no, but man, they are doing some things in Bloomington. So no, that'd be hard.
And finally, Alabama.
No, but I would put Alabama. That's an interesting, instructive exercise right there, because Alabama and A&M, I kind of, have more hesitancy than I do with some of those, right? BYU and Tennessee and some of these that have just shown some flaws. And as I do that, and I don't know how Joel's brain works, but it's kind of sad. My brain almost works to the fatal flaw end of things.
Yeah,
like to be a
you
champion.
did go glass half full. He went, or glass half empty, I should say. He went glass half full. I'll get to his after you make your point. But my whole thing, again, organically, this came up that we're rolling into November, and this is a question you never could have asked in the history of any other season in college football. But you have a lot of teams alive, not only for the college football playoff, but teams that can actually win a national championship.
Yep. I know that I can see this a little bit. There was an advantage in my early years, Lance, at ESPN. I got to do the FCS playoffs my first couple years. So I got to go to Villanova, and I got to go to William and Mary, and I got to go to Montana, and I got to go watch Richmond and Mike London win a national title and scurry from the elevator and run on the field and interview him, because there was no sideline reporter on the last crew at ESPN, which we were on. But it was great experience for me. And you see the gauntlet that is those playoffs and the challenge that becomes. And yeah, if you've got some areas that are really flawed on your team or just not as deep, they just get exposed over the marathon of that season of 12 games, conference championship game, quarterfinal, a semifinal, a championship. My God, the team that's going to come out of this is going to be an absolute warrior group. And that's where Georgia and Oregon and Texas, to me, and Ohio State still have like a lot of depth And when I watch their tape, I don't see, some of the flaws that I do see with a Tennessee right now with A&M's quarterback situation. I know that kid ran and it was awesome, but that's problematic the further you go in that race and you get to the final mile. So yeah, I'm at about 4, 5.
You went 4.5. You had some hesitation with A&M, not as much hesitation with Alabama. Klatt actually went 8 yeses. He had a half. Wow. So he had Oregon.
He's just a homer for college football. Look at him just.
Oregon, Georgia, Penn State was maybe. Ohio State, yes. Okay. Texas, yes. A&M, yes. Clemson, yes. Indiana, yes. Alabama, yes. Indiana is starting to remind me a little bit. I don't even want to say TCU because I think Indiana's got a better coach. Indiana's not relying on a Max Duggan miracle finish every week. This Indiana team, they're just beating the brakes off of everybody they play. They're doing it with a backup quarterback now in Jackson, where the moment didn't look too big. They've got a tricky game in East Lansing this weekend.
They do.
But they're a 7.5-point favorite. That'll be on Peacock. I'm sure the nation will be watching.
No, and I get it. And he saw Indiana. And you do get, as you get closer to these teams and you kind of peel back layers. And I know he was blown away. And heck, what Indiana did to that Nebraska team that took Ohio State to the final minutes. I mean, holy cow, for the committee that's going to come out with, their stuff next week. They're going to have some amazing data points, some tough clay to try to mold in that opening deal for Indiana, for BYU, for your beloved Pony Express at SMU. It's going to be fascinating to see in a week. I heard a fun story on the road this last weekend about Mr. Cignetti, who just isn't publicly an irritant or I shouldn't say an irritant. I love it. He's an open book and he's very confident. But that also stretches privately. It's not just in the public forum or in front of a microphone that he says, Google me. Even in, private, even amongst peers in college football, he was very bold to say, we're going to win this year. You just wait. And bringing all my dudes with me. Got a lot of veterans coming in. I'm going to maximize production in this portal. And, man, he has hit an absolute home run. So I would love to see it. Their secondary scares the heck out of me. We'll see how they do out on the road with these meaningful games, carrying all the expectations now that are going to follow over the next month and do things that have never been done there. That's going to be really hard to do. So for that reason, they were a no for me, but I get it with Flat.
Yeah, and replication is so difficult, but I brought this up earlier too. There's going to be guys, and you're always trying to blueprint something, and there's going to be coaches out there that are going to say, okay, look at what Cignetti did with his James Madison guys. Let's find a group 5 and let's go pay these guys in bulk. Get 15 or 20 of these guys coming in. And I don't think it's always going to work. I mean, obviously, Cignetti had the familiarity with these guys. These guys wanted to come play for him. They were underdogs from week 1. Nobody thought Indiana would do anything this year. So I think it's going to be difficult, but some people or some coaches are going to try this.
Well, and I think also some ADs, right? Is this wheel will eventually spin, and I don't know how many moves are going to be in the coaching fraternity, but just kind of takes one to get the thing spinning that much more. But it's really what Lance Leipold did at Kansas. Now, not quite to this extent in winning in this manner, but remember last year they tore down the goalposts, right, and threw them out into the pond. That was the game that we got to call, and we're doing things that hadn't been done at Kansas and going to bowl games. And how did he do it? Well, go look at that roster that he had at Kansas. There were like 4 starting old linemen from Buffalo. Right, there was 2 linebackers, there was a corner. He took a bunch of veteran pieces that wanted to go with him, and they wanted to take that jump up, and they all had a huge chip on their shoulder, and they were good players, and they were veteran players, and they were productive players. And really, the blueprint for Kansas is exactly the blueprint for Cignetti. So I don't know if it'll be a whole group of players, Lance, but I think it will be more of ADs looking at it, going, "Ooh, okay, where is the next Leipold? Where is the next Cignetti? Where is that coach?" Maybe at the FCS level or group of 5 level that is having that kind of success and can bring 6, 7, 10, 15 guys with them.
I think Alabama fans, it was at DEFCON 2, losing 2 of 3. Vanderbilt, which we will get to in a little bit, losing to Tennessee. But in those 3 games and the close win against South Carolina, they turned the football over 7 times. 0 turnovers on Saturday against Missouri. It ended up being a backup quarterback situation, and Drew Piney came in. He was absolutely awful with the 3 picks. Alabama led 6-0 after Brady Cook went out. But Alabama pitching a shutout against a top 25, winning that game going away 34-0. I think Alabama fans feel better about the situation. It looks more and more with Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn to lose or to end the season coming up after the bye week in Baton Rouge. It looks like a one-game elimination game, Alabama, LSU. How do you feel after watching Alabama this past weekend against Missouri?
Yeah, that was I'll just kind of use that term. It was just kind of grown-ups, right? They kind of played like grown-ups. And you wondered, would they teeter? Would all of this noise and all of the conversation and all the hysteria, going on, would it affect them? And, kudos to Kalen and the staff that just kind of put those blinders on. Let me ask you, Lance, because I'm not watching him and listening to him every day as you guys are. Has he continued to be rather unwavering? This being Kalen DeBoer, or have you started to see maybe a little emotion? I know on the sidelines I've seen some real upset. He's kind of
But he got on some players this week. He got on the officials. Okay. There was a terrible call. And let me ask you this, and I don't know if you saw this, but there is and I forgot exactly if it was a false start or if it was offsides. Anyway, LT Overton for Alabama gets a clean shot with no whistle on Brady Cook. The play had obviously stopped, but the official doesn't get in to protect him, so he goes on, takes Brady Cook down. There's offsetting penalty, so I guess it was motion. And you get the 15-yarder on LT Overton, and he was very, very animated after that because the official didn't step in. I mean, as a former quarterback, how should that play out?
Well, I know what Peyton would do. He would throw the ball at the feet of that defender running at him and wouldn't let him.
It was blindside. It was blindside, though. So I don't.
It was blindside. No, Peyton still had a feel. There was never a blindside. I'm honest to God, in almost 20 years in the NFL, how many blindside hits did Peyton Manning ever take? It's almost zero because he knew who was unblocked, where they were coming from. He would have had his head on a swivel. There would not have been that kind of shot. But no, I get your point. You're going to be uber frustrated as a quarterback. You're going to be furious.
Yeah, the whole reason I bring this up is because we did see DeBoer, and I thought it was great that he had that emotion. I think Alabama fans wanted to see that. Look, you're not going to change the makeup, the internal, what makes Kalen DeBoer. But I think it was interesting to see a little emotion, a little raw emotion.
Good. Yeah, and I'm not to say that he was Tony Dungy in his 2 years at Washington. That would be an unfair characterization. And we had a couple games where, if he didn't like a call, he was going to let you know about it, and he was, going to protect his players. So that's all good. I'm going to be deeply curious to follow this, obviously the LSU game and the rest of the way, and just see, because he's getting tested in ways that he's never been tested before. Right? In the market in Fresno, even the market in Seattle is not a difficult market on its coaches by any means. And going down to that market where you're in the fishbowl in the center of the storm every single day, it's going to be cool to see this stretch and the growth, frankly, that he will have doing something he's never had to tackle before either.
Yeah, look, I don't expect that you saw this, but Missouri gets it down a 1st and goal situation, and it gets down to 3rd and goal from the 1. Alabama takes time out and they bring their starters back in to preserve the shutout. And I thought it was neat in this regard. All the players were engaged. The coaches, especially the defense coordinator, Kane Womack, were so excited on that 4th down stop. And then whatever fans were left in Bryant-Denny, they were going nuts. I mean, this play in the game. A shutout in college football this late in the season against any opponent in conference is impressive.
Yeah, and Lincoln Riley said this to us in our production meeting, and this is so true and maybe even more true than the NFL level. And I know we'll get to the NFL stuff in the second half of our hour here, Lance, but especially for 17 and even up to 24-year-olds that they are now that have been around, the difference at the NFL level is, can you get yourself emotionally to a place where you can be violent and just play on the edge? And it feels like the coach and the team that plays with that urgency is typically the one that's gonna win more often than not. College, it's a whole lot more about confidence. And, Lincoln was talking about that and how, in their game, it was almost a psychological battle, and that confidence and that will after all these tough losses. And, oh my gosh, 4 losses by 14 points and, blowing a game here and not finding a way to get it done there. And that confidence is so freaking important. And I think that's probably why DeBoer makes that move. It's just to kind of infuse those guys a little bit more, right? Just to build them back up after all the vitriol that he and the staff have taken, and certainly the players have felt, to just kind of turn that confidence meter right back around for what's going to be an amazing home stretch.
I said it on Friday. Vanderbilt should never be catching 3 touchdowns to anyone at home. They proved that against Alabama. Now, I didn't have the stones to play Vanderbilt plus the point, so I stayed away from the game. But it comes down to an onside kick, and they were down 21-7, and they find a way to come back and make that a really interesting game. They are now 5-3. Their 3 losses by a combined 10 points. I think they're the best 3-loss team in college football. How impressed have you been with Vanderbilt going 5-3?
Yeah, just kind of blown away, blown away because you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, oh, come on now. This is still Vanderbilt, right? I mean, this is still the school in that conference with academic restrictions and getting everybody in. And while, you can have transfers, there's still a certain caliber of, of the school side of things, in their filter that limits them and challenges them in more ways than anybody else in the conference. And yet kind of getting it done. And it's right back to that word. Like now they've played enough of these games, Lance, that confidence isn't just phony and fake. And it isn't like a coach saying, hey, come on, let's be confident, guys. We can go do this. It's like they know it, and then go toe to toe with anybody. And they beat Alabama, and they took Texas right to the wire. And every game that they have been in. So yeah, that just no longer for me at least. The rest of the season, while I look at Vanderbilt and go, oh, nice story, but shoe's going to fall and they're going to lose some games. Not anymore, man. They're going to be a battle each and every week.
So same color scheme. I'll ask you this: more surprising, Colorado 6-2, Vanderbilt 5-3, neutral site. Who wins that game?
More surprising is Vanderbilt. Shedeur is an amazing player. Travis, amazing player. Like the upside and, the flashes of greatness that they showed even last year. Like, okay, and, schedule wise and everything else. For them to be 6-2 is not crazy. For Vanderbilt to be 5-3 and those 3 losses, 10 points and beating Bama, that's got to be a bigger surprise. Play on a neutral field. Yeah, I'd probably lean Vanderbilt. Not by much, but it'd be a 1, 2, 3 point kind of game. I think it'd be a great game. And the way that Shedeur is playing, the way their lines of scrimmage are playing, their O-line is just settled down and is competent. And that defensive line in front 7, and I think I told you last week about the young D coordinator there, Livingston, has done just an outrageous job, just a phenomenal job with some of the similar pieces to last year, just putting them consistently in much, much better spots.
Well, and I think you can just tell coaching, who great coaches are, but what they do in the season and how teams get better. You're seeing it right now with Mike Elko and A&M, and we'll get to that in a second. But I go back to the Hail Mary against Baylor, and Baylor is starting to round into a pretty good team. Baylor's getting better and better too. But after that win, they dominate Central Florida on the road. They had every opportunity late to beat Kansas State and Boulder. They dominate on the road in Tucson, a game that you called. And then Cincinnati is a good team. The Sorsby kid can play, and they win that game by double digits. So I think they're getting better too.
They are. Yeah, they are. And they're staying healthy in the right spots. Like they only have 3 linebackers. I mean, these guys have got to stay available because after that, I mean, truly, they had a couple kids that did the whole 4-game deal and transferred out. Got to stay healthy with their difference maker. His name's Wonko right in the middle. He's this little fire hydrant. He's like 5'10", 300 pounds. You can't move him. Been a huge factor for them, a transfer from Houston. So they've stayed healthy in the right spots, and that's going to be like so key and critical for them down the stretch. Shedeur and Travis putting on a show. Shedeur and Travis going to be in New York City. Shedeur and Travis are so much stinking fun to watch, both on television and in person as well. And, they've just elevated everybody around them. But the key will be health. And in particular in that front 7, Lance, if they stay healthy and those guys are available, I mean, they've got a great shot to run the table and be one of those 2-loss teams that you could throw into one of your fun scenarios.
It's Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. It is always brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Football season in full effect. So is winning season. You can double your initial deposit. Very important. Put in that code next round at mybookie.ag. Texas A&M. I thought they could be one of these sleeper teams. I still don't know how good they are. They seem to be getting better and better. They were getting dominated in the first half. They make a quarterback change. Wegman to Marcel Reed. LSU and Blake Baker had no answer for that at all. But now they've won 7 consecutive games. They've got a dangerous game this weekend in Columbia, South Carolina. Outside of that, it should come down to rivalry weekend where they host Texas. A&M is getting better. But as a former quarterback, When Wegman gets pulled out and you put Reed in, a guy that has started multiple games, how Blake Baker and LSU looked that lost is baffling.
Yeah, the different skill set, right? The dude can run, and that certainly played. A fun guy and a name you're going to hear more and more about in, over the course of this season and the years to come, and why I think he took this job and left Kansas State where he played, that being Colin Klein, the former great quarterback at K-State. I thought he had a great situation there and would just kind of stay there and get the next head coaching job when they had further success. But he pulled the trigger and left the familiar, left the Big 12 for the SEC. And Mike Elko's hard, man. He is a tough dude. And I don't think always the easiest on maybe staff and people around him and coordinators and offensive coordinators, usually for defensive-minded head coaches, can be a challenge. But Colin has amazing DNA, such tremendous character. He's done an awesome job watching him grow over the last 2-3 years as a play caller, and wasn't surprised to see him have the courage of his convictions and make that move. And then most importantly, put that kid in the best position for his skill set and his success. So keep an eye on Colin Klein over the years. And who knows if they go on a run this year and they run the table and they get to the playoff and have all sorts of success, he may be the next young head coach that people are looking for.
Everybody talked about Billy Napier being that guy that was definitely going to be fired before the season, kind of dead man walking in Gainesville. I said watch out based on the way the contract laid out for Sam Pittman. I'm a Sam Pittman fan. I don't know anybody that's not a Sam Pittman fan. Whether or not he ends up being the coach next year, we shall see. But one of the best moves he did was bringing in Bobby Petrino. It was amazing based on circumstances, and everybody remembers the neck brace and the motorcycle and all that stuff. But 63-year-old Bobby Petrino has had this offense go over 600 yards 3 times. Now they go to Starkville, a team with Michael Van Buren at quarterback. Looked like they were improving under Jeff Levy, although they only had the one win, but they completely wipe them out. Taylor Green goes 6 total touchdowns. They turn over Mississippi State 5 times. But Bobby Petrino, how much time have you spent around him? And do you believe at 63 he gets another chance? And do you think he wants another chance, or do you think he's comfortable just calling plays?
Yeah, that's a great question. I hadn't thought about that next chance and what that would look like, and would it be at the Power 4 level? I think if he's going to do it, I don't think he's going to go back down another level or outside the Power 4. And if you are a Power 4 program, do you want to do that at this stage, right? I think those are all fair questions. Competitively, the dude is... we know he's wired to win and is going to probably want that opportunity, but Lance, his stuff is so good. I've had him at Louisville. I've had him along the way a couple different times. Yeah, and the system works. It's a little bit like Kalen DeBoer, right? A little bit like Ryan Grubb. Like, the system has worked here. It's worked here. It's worked here. It's worked just about everywhere he has been. And now that he's got a runner and a thrower at that position, awfully dangerous dude.
Okay, so Lincoln Riley, Lane Kiffin, Josh Heupel, Kalen DeBoer. I mean, when you look at great play callers, Bobby Petrino, I mean, if you had one guy, and this is going to be a difficult question because I know you're probably going to say it depends on the quarterback, but one guy to call an offense for you for one game, a championship game, and they get a couple of weeks to prep, who is your guy?
Yeah, Lincoln Riley. Lincoln is, and we had obviously Schiano, who's a great football guy, and he was awesome at our meeting to talk to, and he was like, what Lincoln does that really nobody else does is everything that is a pain in the what for a defense, he does it. Some minor in it and can, do this and dabble in it and have it there. Everything he does just puts you in a constant place of conflict and bind. He is an amazing play caller. He's amazing play structure. He's an amazing play creativity. And as Schiano said, like, he plays the game through the quarterback's eyes, and I'm biased on this as a former quarterback. Like, everything he's done is to make his quarterback right. And by the way, let's see, Kyler Murray was the #1 pick, Baker Mayfield.
He had 5 quarterbacks starting this past week.
Yeah. So I know the defense always hasn't been there, and I know, the playoffs obviously were a mess with Oklahoma and getting run out of the building at times, but as just a play caller, to answer that question, and an offense coordinator, yeah, Lincoln's going to be at the top of my list.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that was the first time I've taken a nap on a Saturday in forever, but I did not turn off the TV until 1:41 Central Time. So that game in East Piscataway went past 2:30. I know there were comments from Greg Schiano before. I don't make good decisions. I know I don't want my kids making those decisions. That game was way late, by the way.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, and he told us the story of sitting next to Lincoln Riley at the Big Ten meetings when it was presented like, okay, so here's the deal. You're going to have to just kind of suck it up once every 3 years. And like he turned to Lincoln, he's like, it's going to be me. It's going to be Rutgers year one. And yep, sure enough, it was Rutgers playing at 11 o'clock Eastern time kickoff on their body. Just bizarre.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Again, very important. Put in that promo code next round. They will double your initial deposit. Football season in full effect. So is winning season with our friends at mybookie.ag. How not to defend a Hail Mary. It happened in D.C. We will get thoughts from Fox's Brock Huard. We will get into the NFL on the other side right here on Unlocked.
Follow Brownie on Twitter and Instagram at ryanbrownlive.
Bryant Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hey, this is Matt Roth, the franchisee of Walk On Sports Bistro in Birmingham. With the kickoff of football season, come visit us at one of our 3 locations, Stadium Trace, Greystone, or Trussville. Come enjoy our scratch kitchen menu while watching one of our 80 TVs. Whether you're looking for a pre- or post-game celebration, game day, or date night, we've got you covered. It's all about the win at Walk On Sports Bistro. Walk On, where everybody needs a little playing time.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing. From the creators of The Next Round comes 2 new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. 2 team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Stop by the New York Butcher Shop and pick up the finest in certified Angus prime beef steaks and burgers, premium pork chops, ribs, and all-natural chicken cut to order just for you. Their chef-prepared entrees and side dishes are the perfect dinner-to-go choice for your family and are ready to heat at home. With a great selection of fine wines and desserts, the New York Butcher Shop is your one-stop dinner shop. 2 locations to serve you, Cahaba Heights and on Highway 119 in Greystone. The New York Butcher Shop. Rare quality, well-done service.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard, always brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Sides, totals, props, they've got it all from the NBA, college basketball tipping off next week. Of course, the NFL, college football, jump on board. By the way, if you wanted to know, 22-8.
How'd you do?
22-8 in football. 73%. What do you think about that?
That was this weekend?
Yeah.
I think you're mimicking Alabama football.
Now, I will tell you this. The one
couple
game
weeks ago.
The one game,
couple weeks ago, you can either crater, you can either get in the fetal position, you can quit after one of the toughest weekends you ever had doing it.
Yep.
Like they did against Vanderbilt, getting the goalpost carried down out of the stadium and had to eat that humble pie, every bit of it. You can quit, or you can get right back on that horse, like Bama and Lance. Way to go, dude. 22 and what?
22-8. 22-8. And then really, I mean, if you pull this back, I was 2-2 in the NFL. So 20-6 in college football, which is pretty insane. The one game that I really, really wanted, though, was UCF against BYU. I felt that game. I called it my Big 12 game of the year. I felt like UCF would come to play, especially running the football with Harvey. I thought Jacurri Brown would play a lot better. He ended up getting benched. Gus Malzahn is just, and I said this earlier today, if you open a dictionary and you look up average coach, it's got a picture of Gus Malzahn.
No, it does not. There's other ones below him, right?
This will be 11 consecutive seasons, Brock, that he's lost at least 4 games. How do you lose at least 4 games in 11 consecutive seasons and get the money that he got?
Okay. Now, all right. So there's a little context added to it.
I mean, 4 losses is average, right? He's got good jobs.
Okay. All right. Okay. If you want to talk about return on investment, you throw in the cash component of it in the contract, the ROI. There's a little more debate to be had, but 22-8, dude. Way to go. Go.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the games I almost played the Bears. Thank God I didn't. I couldn't have taken that. Eberflus, I don't think Bears fans like him. He had them in a really good situation. They were 4-2. They've got a lead late. But even going back, and how much did you get to watch? I know you were watching the Seahawks, which we will get to. I don't know how much of that game you watched, but their final 2 possessions in the red zone were awful. Instead of going, you've got a Cole Kmet, you've got a Keenan Allen, you've got, really good backs when you look at DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. You've got weapons there, and you decide to hand it off to a tackle on first down. And it's not even close. He immediately fumbles, never had control of the football, and you turn it over there. That should have lost them the game. They get it back. They go down. They've got a 1st and goal at the 1, and they throw a fade. They end up getting in. But I thought the offensive play calling was terrible for Caleb Williams. And then it comes down where there's 6 seconds on the clock. You know they're going to throw an out because you can't throw a Hail Mary from your own 30-yard line. So, first of all, dissect that play, what the defense wasn't doing and what they should have been doing. And then once you get that out and you get it in a situation where you can do one heave, you've got a cornerback taunting the crowd, doesn't get involved in the play until 2 seconds after the snap. And it just, like you work all week and you played in the NFL and what you put in for those 17 games, and when you've got a borderline playoff team that could have gone to 5-2 and instead drops to 4-3 based on, to me, coaching, that is pathetic.
Yeah, that is a really, really difficult just locker room. Oh, getting on the buses. Oh, the plane, walking by coaches and players. I mean, that's stirring up some bad memories, Lance, because those plane ride home. I mean, at least if you play at home, you get the heck out of there, right? You get to the players' lot, and most of the guys after that loss probably take a shower pill and just go.
Have you been on either side of the Hail Mary?
That's a good question.
I mean, they just don't happen. The onside kick is like impossible to get now in the NFL. But I mean, a Hail Mary, you see more Hail Marys than onside kicks, which is crazy. But, you see a couple a year, and it just blows me away that it can even happen.
Yeah. Well, on the first play, what you're talking about, you have to have at least some corners up just guarding the sidelines, so they can't throw that little quick out, and they're just going to take more time, and you funnel everything to the middle of the field. You just can't give up that amount of yards, especially with Jay. And the other key to that too was him extending that thing for 12 seconds. Right, it was over 12 seconds. I saw a replay of it with the clock on that thing, and allowing all those guys to get themselves in position, because many times that is the ideal spot. You're going to have somebody behind, somebody in the middle, someone in front. But in order to do that, 60 yards down the field, you have to do exactly what he did. Extend that thing, for not 3, 5, 7 seconds, but up over 10 seconds to give them a chance. And yeah, that can be a crippler. They're going to be tested like you were, Lance. Are the Bears going to come out of that fetal position? Are they going to come out swinging? Are they going to come fighting next weekend? Or are they just going to allow one loss to really trickle into 2 or 3 in a really brutal division?
Okay, so they get the Cardinals on the road. Cardinals grinded out a win in Miami with Tua coming back. They've got the Patriots at home. They've got Green Bay at home, the Vikings at home. And then things get real. At Detroit, at San Fran, at Minnesota, at Green Bay, Detroit, and Seattle. I mean, so they needed
Maybe
to
there's a reason Caleb Williams threw the garbage can in the locker room, because he knew you got to get this. Like every one of it, you got to get every single one of these in the league because they're so hard to come by. And then when you have it, you just can't give it up like that. And then I have the DB back there with his head not even turned, his cleats not in the ground, his face mask not even forward, taunting the crowd. I mean,
Don't you call a timeout there if you're Eberflus, though? If you see that, if one of your coaches sees that, to regroup?
Possibly, but then you give them a little bit more time as well. So, I don't think so. And those things happen pretty fast. It's easy to see after the fact. But I'm sure in his mind, like, no chance. There's no chance. Just tackle them. They never call penalty on that anyway. Right. So that was the unthinkable for sure.
That was a fun game, though. And if I asked you on the fly, do one of those two quarterbacks ever win a Super Bowl? Look, passing time, the greatest red wine ever crafted out there in the history of man. Your brother, Damon, has got this business with the great Dan Marino. He obviously never won a Super Bowl, so they're very, very difficult to come by. But if I asked you one of those two guys for starving organizations, Bears haven't won one since 85, Skins haven't won one since 91. Do you think one of those two guys ever hoist the Lombardi Trophy?
Oh man, that is a tough question. The odds, because of the organizations they're in now. Washington has cleaned house. They do have new ownership. I think they're doing things the right way. Is Jaden and both those guys going to remain healthy over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And then ultimately, you're going to have to do what many could not do from 2000 to 2020, and that's unseat Tom Brady, right? I mean, he won, 7 of them, went to 10 of them. So, you got the new Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So kind of like Jordan, kind of like Brady, you're going to unseat him for the next 5, 10 years because I don't think he's going anywhere. So I would say odds are long, but certainly their ability had nothing to do with their own ability. And I'm so impressed with both of them. And this comes with playing for 1, 2, 3, 4 years of college for Jaden Daniels and for Caleb to play year after year after year. They've come to this league kind of like Bo Nix has done as well with the 5-3 Broncos. Like, there's just a different metal to them. There's a different thickness of skin. There's a different just kind of grit to them with all of that experience. And so it doesn't have anything to do with their ability. Their ability, I'd answer that yes. The odds would tell me it's going to be still tough.
Super Bowl futures, you can get them right now, mybookie.ag. You've got a team that you got to lean on. You can get some really good odds right now. Again, player props, sides, totals, futures. They've got it available right now at mybookie.ag. Very important. Put in that code next round. They're going to double your initial deposit at mybookie.ag. So 2-2 in the NFL. One of my 2 losses out west, Lumen Field. Your Seahawks coming into the game at 4-3, 2-2 at home. I felt good about the Seahawks winning the game outright. They were catching 3, and they get bounced. This Ryan Grubb offense at times looks really good. It looks innovative, and then at times it just doesn't look very good. Why is the Seahawks team so inconsistent?
Yeah, it was humiliation yesterday. It was one of the first times I turned to my wife like late in the third quarter, and I'm like, I have to turn this off. I know I got to talk about it on my show, and we just interviewed Mike McDonald this morning, and I think Lance, he gave us the longest pause of any guest on our show in 16 years not named Vita Vea. So Vita joined us a couple years ago. I know his agent well. And I knew he was going to get drafted and everything else. And it was early in the morning for a college kid. I think we interviewed him at 8:30. And Salk said to me, "Are you sure about this?" I'm like, oh, he's great. He's a great dude, and he's not the most verbose. That's fine, but he's going to be a first-round pick, and everything he's doing, getting the Huskies to the semifinal against Alabama and yada, yada, yada. And we interview him, and Salk asks him a really hard question. What do you love about playing football? And I think it was an 8-second silence.
What was the answer? Do you even remember it, or was it so uncomfortable with an 8-second pause, 2 seconds in radio? Like, we can get away with a pause on this format because you know what? We can do some facial gestures. You can shake your head a little bit, but radio, it's a black hole, and 8 seconds is an eternity.
I don't even know. I don't think he even. I think he's. I like to play. I mean, it wasn't even an answer, right?
Hey, so I don't want to say that's the worst interview for you, and I know you're about to get to a point, but I do want to hear your worst. Ours was Chris Johnson, the former East Carolina Pirate, when he was dominating the NFL. He came on, and literally every answer was a one-word answer.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. My old agent, Marvin Demoff, we brought him on in the midst of some Russell Wilson contract negotiations.
Is he related to Kevin, by the way?
That's his father. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so when I reach out about Rams tickets, you're going to give me a hard time when Kevin can print tickets.
Yes. I'll see what I can do. Yeah. I told you I got you. I think I've got enough contacts. But Marvin Demoff started getting into an answer. It was the exact opposite. I want to say it was 8.5-minute answer. And Salt kept elbowing me like, do something. Like, you got to fix this, like interrupt. Cause it was just, it was name and answer. And it was going down paths and numbers and like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I would say those two, but today Mike McDonald gave us, I'm going to go time it tomorrow. It felt like 8 seconds. It felt like a Vita Vea pause, but I think it was closer to 5 or 6. And one of those where you don't know what to do. Like, do I enter, like, and I think it was about DK. I said, hey, where did you feel DK's absence? I said, what? Yeah, it was brutal. It was tough. And that game yesterday was humiliating. So circling all the way back to your question that I can still remember, which was, why are they so inconsistent? Because it's so much new. It's just so much newness, right? You have a new coordinator, a new in Dirty, the defensive coordinator, and I know McDonald calls the plays, and Ryan Grubb and Huff, college dudes making the adjustment to the NFL level. So I think the newness there. Now, he wasn't buying it. I kind of said, do you feel like you guys are just thinking instead of reacting? Because you're just getting hit in the mouth. It was 162 yards to 32 rushing yards, right? It was 14 rushing first downs. How about this fact for you, Lance? Don't bet the Seahawks anymore this year. How about because of this? They gave up 14 rushing first downs. How hard is that to do in the NFL? Happens about 2% of the time over the last year and a half. And they have had it happen to them 3 times. At Baltimore last year, home to Pittsburgh last year, home on Sunday. 14 plus rushing first downs against. Really, really difficult to do at the NFL level.
I need to know this. One of my lifelong best friends, big Arizona Cardinal fan, very random, but he was over on Saturday, and DK on one of these promos came up, and he's like, if the Seahawks ever lose DK, they can't win. And I do think it's interesting in this offense with Ryan Grubb, you always can say the quarterback, but is DK Metcalf maybe the most valuable player? And going into next weekend against my Rams, is he going to be available? And where is the confidence of this Seattle team? I hope they're in shambles. I hope there's inner turmoil. I hope they hate each other right now, and I hope he's not playing.
Well, I think you're going to be saddened on all of those fronts, and I don't know if it'll even matter because right now they just don't play well in their front. They don't tackle well. They don't stop the run. They're 29th in rush offense. They're 29th in rush defense. The teams around them in that rushing offense, especially the Jets and the Cowboys and the Raiders and teams that are all a mess right now. So, no, I don't think that there's inner turmoil. I do think DK is incredibly valuable because he's the one guy in that receiving crew that scares you. Lockett doesn't scare you. JSN doesn't run by you. Bobo can't run. So he's the one dude. And you felt that yesterday. Buffalo just sat and they just squatted in their zone, and that got tighter and tighter and tighter. And oh, by the way, the O-line may be the worst in the league with the Raiders. So no, they've got some problems, and they do this, but their ceiling, and when they play well, and Stafford, How's the Rams O-line, by the way? Are they getting healthy, or is the O-line still pretty battered?
And they're playing well right now. They're able to run the football. And when you got not only Cooper Kupp back on Thursday night, I didn't realize Puka was coming off IR as well. But when you have those two guys out there and Kyron Williams is
take your
effectively
Rams. Just take your Rams, okay? Take your Rams.
Okay, let me ask you this. I thought there were two statement games yesterday in the NFL, and I thought one of those, and we'll get to the other in a second, was Philadelphia going on the road against a red-hot Joe Burrow, and Philadelphia laying the wood to him, 37-17. And Nick Sirianni, I know a lot of people don't like him. He's a polarizing guy. But say what you want. The last couple of weeks, he has got this team ready. They completely dominated. Do you think moving forward, and it seems like it's going to come down to the Commanders or the Eagles when you look at the NFC East, how good do you think this Eagles team is?
Yeah, I mean, I still love their front, and I think this still is a line of scrimmage league. You know, I said earlier, like the college game is about confidence. The NFL game is ramping up to violence. Like which coach, which team, which week, what amount of rest, what kind of matchups, and who just like kind of cranks it and gets that dial up to get their guys to play as violently as possible. And the best big people, I still think, you know, the teams right near the top. I think Kansas City's got some of the best big people at the line of scrimmage. I think Detroit has some of the best big people at the line of scrimmage. I think Philadelphia's got some of the best big people at the line of scrimmage. And this game at the NFL level, they take away the hitting, they take away the pads, they take away the offseason, they take away preseason games. So those teams that naturally have the big, violent, physical dudes, and the most of them, in my estimation right now, Lance, are sitting right atop the standings.
Okay, so I've got to ask you this. Going into the weekend, I believe Baltimore was the best team, and I think they might still be. People would disagree. Yep. Look, Jameis played his ass off, and I just thought the Browns, it was just one of these rivalry games that came down to, a final possession for Baltimore. They couldn't get it in. But the statement that Detroit made yesterday, and, you would think Ben Johnson could do no wrong, because as much as we talked about Alabama pitching a shutout and how difficult those are in college football, scoring 52 in the NFL is insane. Yep. You look at this, 225 total yards for the Lions, and they were 3 of 9 on third downs, and they scored 52 points. Now, they forced 4 turnovers, so there's a lot that comes out of that. But to score 52 points when you only have 225 total yards, that equation doesn't work.
No, that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. They're almost getting to the point, and some of this, again, is probably a little bias in the optics that I watched that Seahawks game where the Seahawks couldn't stop them. I mean, they had absolutely no answers. Not many times you get to the NFL, and we know the line and the margin is so thin and the talent is everywhere and yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, I watched that game and thought there's no way unless there's a fumbled snap or, a penalty or something. Like, you can't stop them. They can run it. They can play pass it. They can throw quicks. Goff has total comfort and command of everything they want to do within all their playbook. And, oh, by the way, they can do everything at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's the best offensive line in the league. So, yeah, they're fun to watch. They're kind of giving me, and I know those numbers don't say it, but the points do, the production does, the touchdown making, they're kind of giving me greatest show on turf vibes, where you're just like, I don't know what to do. Are we going to stop Marshall Faulk? Then 4 guys are going to, run rampant all over us and with our receivers. Okay, we're going to cover him. Then Marshall Faulk's going to run for 150. Like, what are you going to do? Pick your poison. And, they're kind of sending off that aroma right now.
And in that, the greatest show on turf, the Rams went to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and you had 3 consecutive MVPs, Kurt Warner, then Marshall Faulk, then Kurt Warner. I thought Marshall Faulk was really the MVP of all 3. But Jared Goff, I said it last week, I think the guy's going to win MVP if he stays healthy. He only averaged 5.7 yards per attempt yesterday, but he was 12 of 15 with 3 touchdowns, played clean football, was pressured nonstop, was sacked 4 times. But Goff is just playing at an incredible level right now.
Could you and would you have ever imagined, Lance, when he left L.A. that this was possible?
No, not at all. I didn't know he would start for Detroit.
What would have had to have been the future's odds for you to have bet that Jared Goff would take the Lions to the NFC title game, be the front runner in 2024 for MVP and maybe a Super Bowl again? What would have been the future? What would they have had to have been for you to bet that?
I can't even. I mean, astronomical. I can't even imagine. I felt bad for Goff. As excited as I was that March night in 2021 when Stafford, the trade went down, I was so excited to get Stafford, but I felt so bad for Jared Goff because he was going to Detroit. and he was going to one of the worst organizations in all of sports. And it's just been an amazing, construction from Brad Holmes, your general manager, Dan Campbell. I'm not the biggest fan. I love his enthusiasm, but it's been pretty incredible. I know we're coming up on it. You got 1 point real quick.
Yeah, the beauty of the quarterback position, too, is if you lined up and did a combine, with all 90 guys that are playing QB in the NFL right now, Jared Goff's arm strength, if he had to do the QB challenge back in the day, remember that, where they just heave the ball, Randall threw it like 90 yards, Favre's throwing it 80 yards. I don't know if he throws it 60 yards. The arm and the talent and the athleticism and the speed, doesn't matter. You got the brain, he's got the anticipation, and he's got accuracy like you do in making your picks.
That's Fox's Brock Huard Unlocked, brought to you by mybookie.ag. We'll see you next week.